They say there's an old clock shop hidden somewhere in the world. It has no sign, no address, and no way to find it on purpose. But if your watch ever starts showing a time that couldn't possibly be real, the clockmaker is already expecting you. Some things break so slowly that you don't notice at first. Your watch starts running a minute fast, then 5, then an hour. But one day, it stops being wrong and starts keeping someone else's time. Everyone who has ever found that shop begins their story the same way. I just wanted to get my watch repaired. They all believe it happened by accident. An old watch stopped working. A strange metallic click echoed through the house. Then somehow, they stumbled across a repair shop they'd never seen before. But sooner or later, they all realized the same horrifying truth. The shop didn't appear because the watch broke. It had existed long before that day, simply waiting for them. This happened to a man named Ethan. A few months after his grandfather passed away, the only thing he inherited was an old pocket watch. It looked unusual. A worn silver case, a thin chain, and a perfectly blank dial. No hands, no numbers moving, just an empty face. "It's probably broken," Ethan muttered, before tossing it into a drawer and forgetting about it. A few nights later, he woke to the faint sound of metal clicking somewhere in his apartment. The sound came again, closer this time. The pocket watch was lying on his desk, and its cover had somehow opened on its own. Ethan stepped closer. For the first time, a pair of hands had appeared on the blank dial. They pointed to 4:17. He checked the time on his phone. It was 11:42 p.m. The pocket watch was off by almost 5 hours, or at least that's what he believed. He tried to move the hands, but they wouldn't budge. They felt as though they weren't part of the mechanism at all, but trapped beneath the glass itself. The next morning, the hands were gone. The dial was blank again, as if nothing unusual had happened the night before. Ethan took the watch to a local repair shop, but the watchmaker barely looked at it before saying, "There's nothing here to repair." The second repair shop gave him an even stranger answer. "I've never seen a watch without a movement." At the third shop, an elderly watchmaker turned pale the moment he saw it. He refused to touch the watch and quietly whispered, "You shouldn't try to find the man who can repair this." "Why not?" Ethan asked. The old man remained silent for several seconds before answering, "Because he actually exists." That evening, Ethan noticed something impossible. A tiny engraving had appeared inside the watch's cover. He was certain it hadn't been there before. The engraving showed a simple hourglass, and beneath it, the name of a single street. No building number, nothing else. The street didn't exist on any map. Yet when he typed it into his GPS, it immediately calculated a route. Ethan arrived just after sunset. The street was completely deserted. Every building looked abandoned, except one. It was a small clock shop with old display windows filled with antique timepieces. There was no sign above the door. Every clock in the window displayed a different time. The strangest part wasn't that they disagreed. It was that none of their hands were moving. The moment Ethan touched the doorknob, Every clock inside the shop clicked at exactly the same time. The door opened on its own. Inside, the air smelled of old wood, machine oil, and metal. Hundreds of clocks were ticking together, yet somehow none of them shared the same rhythm. An elderly man sat behind a long wooden workbench, carefully repairing an old mechanism. Without looking up, he calmly said, "You're 7 years late." Ethan froze. "I'm sorry, what?" Only then did the old man raise his eyes. There was no surprise in his face, only the quiet expression of someone who had expected this visit for a very long time. Ethan placed the pocket watch on the table. "It's broken." The old man glanced at it for only a second before giving the faintest smile. "No," the clockmaker replied. "It's working perfectly." Ethan frowned. "Then why is it showing the wrong time?" The clockmaker gently closed the watch and answered, "Because it isn't showing yours." Ethan let out a nervous laugh. "You're saying this watch keeps someone else's time?" The clockmaker quietly opened the case again. The hands had disappeared. "It only shows time when there's something to show," the old man said calmly. "Right now, it's silent." Ethan looked around the workshop. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, filled with wall clocks, pocket watches, wristwatches, alarm clocks, and massive tower mechanisms. Not a single one displayed the same hour. Some clocks moved forward, others ran backward. A few jerked ahead in sudden jumps, skipping entire hours as though time itself had gone missing. "Why are they all different?" Ethan asked. The clockmaker never looked up from his work, because they never belonged to the same time. The old man picked up another pocket watch resting on the table. Someone's name was engraved on the lid. He studied the dial for several seconds before gently stopping the movement. The instant the mechanism stopped, a single bell echoed somewhere deep inside the workshop. Just one chime, as though something had quietly reached its final second. Ethan instinctively turned toward the sound. "Is someone else here?" "Of course," the clockmaker answered without hesitation. "Quite a lot of them." He gestured toward a long hallway beyond the workshop. Instead of walls, it was lined with endless wooden cabinets, each one filled with clocks. Thousands of them. A small metal tag hung from every clock. None of them carried a name. Each tag displayed only a single date. Some of the dates had already passed. Others hadn't happened yet. A few were so far in the future that Ethan assumed they had to be mistakes. "What do the dates mean?" he asked quietly. The clockmaker finally looked at him. "The day each clock finds its way back to me." A chill ran through Ethan. Do their owners always bring them here? The old man smiled faintly. Most of the time. Without another word, the clockmaker handed Ethan a small screwdriver. "Help me." He placed an old wristwatch on the workbench. The glass was shattered. The hands were bent. The movement had completely stopped. "What do you want me to do?" Ethan asked. "Just hold it." The moment his fingers touched the watch, a memory exploded inside his mind. A little girl laughed as she ran across a playground. A man held her hand beneath the bright summer sun. Fresh cut grass filled the air. The vision vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. Ethan dropped the watch and stumbled backward, breathing hard. What was that?" he whispered. The clockmaker calmly picked up the watch. 4:42. "No, I saw a little girl." The old man nodded. "Exactly. For that watch, 4:42 is still happening." Ethan stood speechless before finally asking, "Are you telling me time can belong to someone?" The clockmaker slowly shook his head. "No, sometimes people belong to their time." He walked over to a tall grandfather clock standing in the corner. Its pendulum hung perfectly still. With a gentle push, the clockmaker set the pendulum in motion. It swung only once. At that exact moment, every clock in the shop fell silent. Every ticking mechanism stopped together, leaving behind a silence so complete that Ethan could hear his own heartbeat. The silence lasted only a few seconds before a door creaked open somewhere deep beyond the hallway. Even though the front entrance had never moved, an elderly woman slowly emerged from the darkness. She didn't say a word. In both hands, she carefully carried an old pocket watch. She placed the watch on the workbench without looking at Ethan. The clockmaker examined it as if he had been expecting it that very day. The woman gently ran her fingers across the lid, not like someone saying goodbye to an object, but to a person. The clockmaker opened the case. The hands were still moving, painfully slow, as if every second demanded effort. He watched the dial for a few moments before quietly saying, "He's almost there." The woman simply nodded. She didn't cry. She didn't ask a single question. It sounded like the answer she'd been waiting to hear for years. The clockmaker carefully stopped the movement. The hands froze, and somewhere inside the workshop, a single bell rang once more. The woman closed her eyes, whispered, "Thank you," then turned around and walked away without another word. As the door closed behind her, Ethan finally spoke. "What just happened?" The clockmaker placed the watch inside one of the wooden cabinets before answering. "She won't have to wait anymore." "Wait for who?" "My son." Ethan frowned. "But you just said." The old man quietly interrupted him. "He's arrived." For the first time, the clockmaker stopped working altogether. His watch stopped this morning. She knew before anyone called. The room fell silent again, and Ethan felt the temperature around him drop. So these watches, they tell you when someone dies. The clockmaker slowly shook his head. "No, death doesn't know how to keep time." He walked to the oldest cabinet in the workshop. On its highest shelf rested dozens of pocket watches with perfectly blank dials, just like Ethan's. There were far more than Ethan expected. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all waiting. "Why do they all look the same?" Ethan asked. The clockmaker gently brushed his fingers across one of the cases. "Because none of them has shown anything yet." "And mine," Ethan whispered. "It already has." Ethan opened his pocket watch. The hands had returned. They now pointed to 9:13. His phone read 8:41 p.m. The gap between between the two times had grown even larger. What happens when the two times finally match? Ethan asked. For the first time, the clockmaker hesitated. He looked Ethan directly in the eyes and answered in a voice barely above a whisper. They never do. Then why? Because it isn't your time. The clockmaker picked up a jeweler's loop and examined the watch's movement more carefully than before. His expression changed. That's unusual. He frowned. Very unusual. A knot formed in Ethan's stomach. What's wrong? The old man slowly closed the watch. In all my years, they've never been wrong. What do you mean? Every watch follows the life of one person, from the very first second to the very last. He gently set Ethan's watch back onto the table. But yours is keeping time for two. The instant he finished speaking, every clock in the workshop clicked in perfect unison. Slow footsteps echoed from the darkness at the far end of the hallway. Steady, patient, getting closer. But no one appeared. The footsteps stopped just beyond the shadows, as if someone had chosen not to cross the threshold. The clockmaker didn't even turn around. It's too early, he said calmly. The footsteps disappeared immediately, as though whoever had been waiting understood it wasn't their time to enter. Ethan could no longer hold back. Who was that? The clockmaker kept staring into the darkness before quietly replying, sometimes. Those who come for the watches arrive before their owners do. He carefully wrapped Ethan's pocket watch in an old piece of cloth and held it out to him. Take it, he said, while it can still make mistakes. And if I throw it away? The clockmaker gave the faintest smile. You can try. Ethan took the wrapped watch. It felt much heavier than before, as though he wasn't holding metal anymore, but the weight of someone's entire life. He walked toward the door. Before stepping outside, he glanced back. The clockmaker had already returned to his work, as if Ethan had never been there at all. The moment Ethan stepped into the street, the city looked completely ordinary again. He turned around. The clock shop was gone. In its place stood nothing but an abandoned building with boarded-up windows covered in dust. A few days later, the pocket watch opened by itself again. The hands now pointed to 9:14. They had moved forward by only a single minute. That same evening, the news reported that a man had survived a devastating car crash after spending hours between life and death. Ethan looked down at the watch. The hands remained perfectly still, as though they were patiently waiting for someone. He never tried to discover whose life the watch was measuring, but from time to time, he would wake in the middle of the night to the familiar metallic click, and every time he opened the case, the hands showed a different hour. Sometimes they were ahead, sometimes they were behind, but they never matched the real time. People say Ethan eventually found the shop again. This time, the door was locked. Hanging from it was a small wooden sign, closed today. Beneath it, someone had written another sentence in white chalk. All clocks are already running. No one knows how many timepieces are hidden inside that workshop. Tens of thousands, or perhaps only a few. But But everyone tells the same story. The clockmaker never throws a single one away, because even a clock that has stopped forever still carries someone's time. And every morning, the clockmaker unlocks the door, adjusts his glasses, winds the first mechanism of the day, and quietly goes back to work. He never asks a visitor's name. He never tells them the price. And he never sells a clock, because every clock tells the correct time, just not yours. So if you ever open an old watch and hands suddenly appear on a dial that was once completely blank, don't try to move them. Somewhere, a hidden clock shop has already opened its doors, and the clockmaker is waiting for you